the tech guy. So, yeah, you alright? How are you doing?
I'm all good, how are you?
Not bad. Is quarantine treating you well? I mean, not anymore, but...
Yeah, no, it's fine now.
Bit rough. Like, you don't really need to use them, just like, in case you sort of kind of need to look down. Yeah, so just like how this is going to go sort of thing. Like, do you want to test out the mic, like, see...
Later, or even now, like 6 years later, I'll hear a car pull up outside, and my first thing would be like, "Oh, mum's home."
Yeah.
And then you still get it now, but I think you are in kind of shock and denial first.
Yeah.
And you don't really want to talk about it, but I think you have to. And one of the main reasons how I not started to become normal again, but like more comfortable in certain situations is from talking about it.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
I felt like I had to hide it, kind of, like when I meet new people, but it's just...
You should just never do that.
You just have to freely talk about it as if it was like a parent who's still here.
Yeah,
like, it just
completely.
has to be...
I mean, it's a part of our life. And like,
it is.
You know, it's very important to realise we shouldn't, hide away or... It's not, I know exactly what you mean, because it's not a sense of embarrassment. It's like, you don't want to, like you said, when you meet a new person, bring it up, because then their whole perception of you not changes, but it's like subconsciously they'll be wary of things they'll say, and
you don't want them to act differently around you.
Yeah. One thing you mentioned, obviously, the moment your mum, well, not the moment, but like the time your mum passed, and this I remember so well. Like, Dad, well, not the moment mum passed, but leading up to her death. I think especially with cancer, it's when someone comes towards the end of their life, it becomes quite apparent. It's like it's sort of, there's no turning back. And Dad, I'd just seen mum in hospital, and in the back of my mind, it was just like a regular hospital visit. Mum went quite frequently. Like, she wasn't, obviously she was ill, but I didn't think too much of it. And then Dad sat me down, and that in itself, I was like, right, it's a bit weird, because like, we don't, like, what are you doing? Like, why are you sitting me down? And then he was just like, Joe, your mum's not got, she's not got long left to live. And when someone says that, like, people, you see in the movies, they break down, they start crying. I just kind of froze. Like, it was
like, you can't like take it.
Yeah,
it physically doesn't go in.
It doesn't add up. Like, it's like you're just hit with this mountain of news, and I remember thinking, like, okay, like, and I went and drove back to uni that same day. Even though I had this like mountain of news, I didn't like fully allow it to process. And I think once you allow it to process, and I was sitting, I was with a friend actually, and I kind of just, that's when like the emotions just came out. I started crying, and it was like, at that point I was just not in control of anything. Do you know what I mean?
100%. I mean, I feel like because I was a lot younger, it was quite covered up. I mean, I think my mum was in hospital straight for about 10 weeks, and then she got put into a hospice. And I remember a member of my family telling me, "Oh, a hospice is where someone goes to get better." Stuff like that, or where they go to relax. So it wasn't even a thought in my head, my mum's going to die. Like, it wasn't a thought. And I remember I asked my auntie one day, like, is she going to die? And I remember saying in my head, "Oh, don't be stupid. Of course she's not. Why are you even
this
saying
can't happen
that?
To my mum."
Yeah, of course. Like, things like this don't happen to me. Like, it happens to other people. So I think because I was in such disbelief when it happened, it kind of made it worse. I understand why my family had to kind of hide it. I was 13 years old. I was in year 8. I had no idea like how this would pan out. But at the same time, I feel like they did need to be more open and allow me to kind of fully understand what was happening, as opposed to a hospice is where someone goes to relax.
I think, and that in itself, I think, speaking from my mum, I mean, it shows the incredible strength she had, but she always had the mentality of a mother first, rather than, so, she would know, it wouldn't be a conversation, oh, this is what's going to happen, I'm not feeling great. She would pick herself up, and she would take Ben's my brother, if anyone doesn't know, but take him to a friend, or she would, pick me up from somewhere, and it would always be the fact that she was a mother first, rather than the fact that she was ill and she needed looking after. And although that was incredible, And, you know, looking back at that now, I'm thinking, I don't know how she's done that. It was almost like a part of me just wishes she was a little bit more honest, and like, you know, maybe there were signs, and I was kind of not ignorant, but I didn't want to, like you said, a certain disbelief. I didn't want to believe it.
You look past it.
Yeah, it's like the transparency. You know, you don't want to accept, you know, this is what's going to happen. So you kind of act like it's not there, sort of thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, even when I got told my mum had like a week left, I was still kind of seeing...
That in itself is crazy.
No. I was kind of still seeing friends in the evening doing stuff, because I was like, no, it's fine. Like, she's going to be here next week.
Yeah.
You just... Even when you get told so straight what's going to happen, your head still goes, but it could go this way.
Yeah.
It probably won't go that way.
Yeah. I mean, but the fact is, you were so young, and, you know, I mean, I was a teenager, but it just comes down to the fact that I think a lot of, you know, especially adults and, you know, people our own age, it's the fact that they don't really know how to talk to us when you go through something like this. You know, I mean, I don't know if you're the same, but I find adults sort of, you know, they kind of what they try and relate to me, but, you know, that it's certain things they say that I'm just like, you know, I lost someone, I know how you're feeling, and there I am thinking, well, look, you don't know how I'm feeling, and, you know, don't try and compare our situations. And although I'm slightly rambling, what I'm trying to say is, because loss isn't normalized, and these conversations aren't, you know, people aren't prepared to have these conversations, so it's almost like a complete mess when, you know, you're sitting shiver, or, you know, months after the passing, sort of thing. I
mean, I feel when people talk to you about this, they kind of say the thing that everyone says. It's like, sorry for your loss, stay strong, all of this. And although it is lovely to receive messages from people I'm not that close with saying, oh, stay strong, it's like, well, I shouldn't have to. Like, if I know that someone has lost someone and I can relate on like whatever level with it, I wouldn't say like, oh, you have to stay strong, because you don't. Like, you are completely allowed to like have bad days and break down if you want to, because you deal with it in however way you cope with. So it is obviously a hard conversation to have, and if someone says, yeah, I know how you're feeling, I completely relate to you, in your head you are thinking, well, you don't, so don't say that. But it's just, as you said, people don't know how to speak to each other, so it is obviously a difficult conversation. Completely.
And I think also every loss is so different. You know, no two losses should be compared as the same thing, because even though, you know, we've both lost a mum, it's like there are so many, you know, differences in what we both experience and the kind of people we are. So it's like, you know, that we're not going to feel this the same way, sort of thing. But another thing I want to touch on is, so, you know, obviously I read your blog, and it's really good, by the way.
Thank you.
But yeah, so one of the things, obviously, you mentioned the stages of grief, and yeah, I just think like how relevant, you know, I was reading it and how relevant it is. And I think with grief, you know, it's you don't know when and where you're gonna experience, or, you know, experience these different thoughts and feelings, and when they come, it's just, you know, I could be completely fine, and then the next day, or something triggers, I could see one of Mum's old jumpers, I could see a picture, and something triggers in me, and I almost break down. Well, I don't want to say break down, because I don't, but something inside of me like triggers, and I you know, the emotions come running. And I think that's something with loss that I'm always gonna have to sort of accept.
I mean, as I mentioned before, it can be completely out of the blue. I can have days where I'm so happy to talk about my mum, like now, and I can have some days where I'm having a good day, and a family member or a friend will mention the tiniest thing about her, and like it will set me off, or I'll kind of be thinking, oh, don't mention her today, or stuff like that, when it should be like, I can sit here and happily talk about my dad, who's like at home now and is well, but if someone says the word mum, like it's a completely different feeling. And although this is different, because like my mum has passed and my dad's still here, they're both still my parents, it's the same, they've both brought me up, it should be the same conversation, but it feels different. It's like,
just not,
it's like when they say it, like it kind of hurts a bit just to hear the word mum, because I mean, I haven't said the word mum since I was about like 13. For me, it's weird. It feels kind of uneasy.
I completely understand that. I've noticed, whenever I talk about mum, I don't talk about her in the past. So like I'd say, oh yeah, mum really loves that movie, or mum loves this and so, and it's like, in my mind, I know I'm doing it, but it's just like, it's almost a way of me keeping everything about her still alive.
Yeah.
And, there will be times in my life where I don't want to say forget, because I'll never forget her, but there will, my memories of her may fade. But I think talking about her as if she's still around really kind of keeps her memory alive and keeps her in the loop. So I mean, it is something I've noticed I do quite a lot.
No, I'm the same. I mean, I was talking to a friend yesterday, and they said, "Oh, how do you know this person?" And I go, "Oh, his mum is best friends with my mum." And in my head, I was saying, "No, you should say they were best friends." Yeah. And I'm like, "No, I'm gonna say like they are best friends." Yeah. It's just if it helps you kind of cope with it. Yeah. Or to not have to mention in every sentence, "Oh, by the way, that's because my mum died." Like, you shouldn't have to do that the whole time.
One thing I also find though is like, if I mention, if I say mum around, if I'm with a group of mates, I kind of notice like this eerie silence. Like everyone's just like, oh, like
we don't know how to respond to that. Do we say sorry? Yeah. Do we just carry on the conversation? No, I understand.
It's good. It's like I'm just bringing it into the conversation, but everyone has this initial moment in their head like, oh, like she's dead, like, oh, this isn't. But it's a way of just normalizing, the eventuality that I'm not going to see her again, but I'm still keeping her memory alive. And, obviously people won't understand, but I think having conversations like this and showing that it is okay to talk about loss and, things we feel are, very relevant, but people will hopefully understand that this is a very real and natural thing.
Also, I think when talking about loss, it doesn't always have to be like a big massive conversation. Yeah. Like if I'm just like dropping her name into a sentence for something, like I could be going out for dinner and ordering something and say, oh, like my mum was used to get this. Then it doesn't have to be like, oh, I'm so sorry, blah blah blah. Yeah. It has to be like, oh yeah, I really like that too. Yeah. Like it's just like it's a normal thing.
Yeah, it's just like you said, you would mention it in conversation, not think too much of it. But that's just the way it is, and like unfortunately for us, we have to deal with that. And I don't want to say, I mean, I'm quite early on in my lost journey, whatever you want to call it, and I have found some sort of coping mechanisms. Well, obviously, Mum had a stone setting quite recently, and we, near her, I forgot the word, but the stone, whatever.
The gravestone.
That's the one. I slipped out of my head, but yeah, she has this bench, and I say quite frequently, I like to go up there and like read to her, and I don't want to say it's like a coping mechanism, but it's like if there is a certain day I'm feeling, like just not lost without her, but I want to see her or speak to her. I find I'm actually reading one of the Harry Potter books, Order of the Phoenix, plug, but yeah, but
Goblet of Fire.
I like the film more, but actually no, I didn't. It wasn't the book was really good, Goblet of Fire. I take that back. But yeah, so I just find that I read to her, and like reading to her just sort of like, it's like we're having like a two-way conversation, even though we're not. It's just sort of, I feel that inside. It's hard to explain, but
I feel like one way that I can cope with it is comedy, not like joking, making jokes about the situation, but hearing stories like of her that people tell me, just because it does make me laugh. And like jokes, however many times you tell them, like they're still funny, whether it's about my mum, who's obviously not here, the jokes she made, they're still funny. I mean, in our old house, we used to have like this, she got this brand new white carpet put everywhere, and she used to go mad if people were to wear shoes. Yeah. And I think she said to my friend's dad one day, you know what, on my gravestone it's going to say not on my white carpet, just because she was known for saying that. And I didn't know that my dad did this, but at the stone setting, when they finally put it on, it obviously said her name, blah blah blah, and then it had in quotations, not on my white carpet.
Oh, that's brilliant.
And I just think it's such a funny way, like obviously stone settings and funerals and shivers, they're really depressing. Like, you sit there, everyone's kind of mourning in a way, but as people say, it doesn't have to be like about the loss, it could be a celebration of their life. And I feel like that just captured her so perfectly, because even though she's not here, one, she's still telling us off, and she's still laughing with us.
Like, Mum was obviously the same. I remember at her funeral, Dad, I spoke at the funeral, and I was coming from I'm gonna miss you, Mum, and all of this. And what my dad did, which was amazing, was he just told a story about Mum, and like every person in that room, to a certain degree knew what Mum was like. And the fact, he shared this, this classic, classic Jewish mother, or the person she was. And it, like, obviously, like you said, it's a sad day, but bringing up these stories is like a remembrance of her life and the kind of person she is. And I will always treasure that sort of thing. But yeah, do you have any other stories that, you can bring up? I mean, put you on the spot here, but like anything particular that, you think of that makes you happy or smile?
Someone once asked me what the last thing my mum said to me was, and they were like, do you remember it? Probably thinking it was going to be some emotional story.
Yeah.
And I actually remember I was, I think I was making a big deal about saying bye to her. At like the hospice. I was like, I didn't know if I'm going to see you tomorrow, the next day. So I was obviously like smothering her in love, crying with this. And obviously she never wanted to make a big deal out of anything. And I think I was like crying, telling her how much I love her. And she just looked at me. She was like, oh, sod off. As in like, stop smothering me, go home.
Yeah, leave me alone.
And I think that was one of the last things she actually said to me. But she didn't want me to be sat there crying, upset the whole time. Just wanted to go home, see friends and live my life.
Yeah. That reminds me of... the moment Mum of I don't want to the last memory or something similar, but I remember seeing her in hospital, and at this point towards the end of your life, she's really thin, she's a bit delirious, she's not really making sense, sort of thing. And I'm sitting in the room, and I've come to her bed, and there's like 5 or 6 of us in this room, sort of like all, looking like shit, all pretty much, like knowing the eventuality of this evening, what's going to happen. And I think it might have been my dad or my grandma, and someone's gone to Mum, how are you feeling? And she's just gone tickety boo. Like she's like at this point, like, she's near enough, like her last few breaths, and she still had this like charisma. And then she was like, oh, Jeff, fuck off. Like, like the fact that she still had that, that strength, just... It's kind of what I want her to be, reminded for, not her cancer and how shit, her cancer journey was. But yeah, I mean, that's another thing actually. Obviously, cancer has been a big part of our lives, and swift conversation change. But
right.
Yeah, like the fact that, what I find amazing, and, for all women and men out there who do go through cancer, it's just incredibly tough. Like, seeing her come back from, I mean, especially the first round of chemo. I mean, I was 8 when she first got it, and as an 8-year-old, seeing your mum with no hair, I think you're like, what's going on? Like, Mum, where's your hair gone? Like, you don't really know. And I just remember looking back at that now and just being completely baffled and by what I was experiencing. So, to think that my mum was going through so much and yet had this incredible strength to be a mother to 3 kids is just amazing.
To touch on the hair loss, it's quite weird for me, because obviously I think I was around about the same age when my mum first got it, about 8 or 9. And I can't think back now and remember her losing her hair or with no hair. I think there's one memory, but that's about it. But then I look back on photos now and I see like a holiday we went on, and I look at her hair and it's so thin. It's like she barely had any, but I couldn't remember that, because I think at the time, like I completely blocked it out. And I was looking at these photos and I was like, surely she had more hair then. Surely she didn't look like this. But I feel like physically your brain just it kind of turns off. Yeah. And I know for the last kind of year or 2 years of my mum's life, I don't have that many memories, just because if they were, they wouldn't be good ones. And I think my brain physically won't let me remember them.
It's like your brain almost represses. I mean, a bit of psychology talk, and I know you like that, but it's like it almost represses all those bad memories. So you kind of see your mum or dad or whoever it is you've lost in the light or the way you want to see them. I mean, obviously, I do remember her last few weeks, and I do remember, times she was ill. But most of the memories I look at now and think of now are just times we went to bar mitzvahs and were dancing, or times she was just being herself. And I think, to take that forward, that is amazing, sort of thing.
No, 100%. I mean, I knew when my mum first passed, I think all these old good memories came flooding back.
Yeah.
And I think it wasn't until only last year, so that still would have been 5 years after she passed away, I remembered that she had kind of the choice whether to basically pass away at home or in the hospice. And originally she chose to come home. So we kind of obviously changed all the house up so it was like set for her.
Yeah.
And I remember I physically couldn't look at her when I was eating. Yeah. It's a weird thing just because she looked so different, and it made me so uncomfortable. I always, probably for that past week or 2 weeks, I always used to eat dinner in my room.
Yeah.
And that wasn't something I remembered until about last year. Bearing in mind I used to do that every single day because I was more focused on obviously the good memories, and as you say, like I hear about my mum dancing at bar mitzvahs, I see videos, stuff like that. And I remember those now, and I'm happy about that because I don't want to remember how I saw her.
Her worst part of her life.
And I think one thing that kind of shocked me at the time about that was my sister's friend tried to like take me out for the day when my mum was passing.
By the way, you can have water if you want.
Yeah, no, I'm fine, thank you.
It's not for decoration.
She took me out for the day, I think shopping or something, and when she drove me back to the hospice, I was like, oh, do you wanna come in and see her? And this person was basically like her own daughter as well. Yeah. And she was like, oh, I'm just going to drive home because I want to remember her how she was. Yeah. And that kind of really hit me at that point because people were kind of planning as if she had died and I was thinking in my head, she's still here. Like, go and see her. Like, she's still here.
This will be your last moments with her.
But obviously I understand that now. Like, if I could, I'd only remember the good memories. Yeah. But I think that was one point that hit me as well, and being sat in a room with my mum and my dad saying, I kind of need to know a rough number of how many people you want at the funeral or the shiva. Like, I'm sat there writing a list of like my friends when I'm 13 who I want to come to the funeral. Which is completely nuts. Of someone who's physically alive and sat next to me. Like, you don't think about these things.
No. I mean, I can't even begin to think what, as a 13-year-old, I mean, my sister's only 14. But I know that, when I was going through the same sort of thing, I know how, tough it was for me. I remember going the night before she passed, or she passed in the morning, and, we went to the hospital for the last time, and we've all gone, Dad, my brother, and someone else who I forgot. I'm sorry, whoever, if you're listening. I can't remember. I think it might have been my uncle, maybe. But we've gone out, near the hospital to a restaurant, and we were discussing, the funeral and the obviously the shiva. And looking back at it now, she was still alive, and this was her last day on earth. But it was the fact that, like, how quickly things changed. It went from like a week ago, she was still full of life, and almost like, maybe she wouldn't have got better, but she still had that hope, to discussing what's going to happen over the next few months and things like that. But shivers and things like that in itself are so overwhelming. I mean, especially as
3 or 4 days straight of, it's just like blur,
bombardment of just,
like, you don't do anything in the day because you're just you've got a shiver in the night, and that's all you're really thinking. So it's just these 4 days just kind of wash by, and then after that you're like, what do I do now?
Yeah, it's completely crazy. I mean, do you remember the night your mum passed? Is that?
So the night my mum passed, I was sleeping at my friend's house. Okay. And I think she passed in the very early morning, so I got woken up. I got told my auntie picked me up. I stayed there. Obviously had the funeral the next day, 3 days of shiva. But because my mum passed at the end of August, school started on like the 5th of September. I was going into year 9, so I kind of went to like the day of the last shiver. I went back to school the next day, and I remember like the teachers coming up to me every lesson, like, are you sure you want to be in school? But that was probably the best thing that I could have done, because I was just like busy the whole day, didn't really think about it until I got home at night, which is obviously normal. But it was good because it kept me busy, kept me with my friends. Obviously you're 14, 13, so you don't really know how to deal with it, and you can kind of do stupid things in a way. And that is another thing that should be spoken about. Like when you lose someone at such a young age, people are kind of too scared to talk to you. Like I always knew I could go to my dad for advice and stuff like that, but I think he was maybe too scared to approach me about it. Like he didn't want to mention it in case I was having a good day and then he mentioned it. So because you don't really know how to deal with it, you can deal with it in any way possible. And people do obviously go down like a bad route, and no one really speaks about that. And I think it took me a long time to realise that what I was doing was because I was in a shit place. I was grieving my mum, and at the time people would say, oh, you need to stop behaving like this, like you're doing it because of your mum. And I think, oh, there's no link here between this and my mum, but I'm kind of blabbering on.
No, it's fine. I know exactly what you're saying.
No one tells you this is how you deal with it, because there is no one way.
Right or wrong. It's not like ticking the box.
You just have to figure it out yourself, and you can sit there in like a shell and just do every single day the same, and then hopefully you'll get over it. Or you can try and find a way that kind of comforts you, and it can help, or it can make it worse. No one really knows.
Well, I mean, initially I feel like there is an element of you're allowed to be almost not allowed to be, but you become quite reckless. I don't think I went through that, but I think it is very apparent to me how you can just completely not lose your head, but it's almost like it's given you this free pass to be this reckless version of yourself, because no one's gonna.
Sorry, it can happen when you lose anyone. If you lose a grandparent, a friend, a sibling, a parent. But I think when it's a mum, not that it's worse, but it's different, because losing a sibling or a father, like the mum is the one to tell you, like, get your shit together, do this, opposed to a dad might kind of step back and just kind of let you do your own thing. So that was also a thing that made it quite tough as well. I didn't have anyone to say, like, you need to stop doing this, you need to get better, you need to work harder, because the person that needed to tell me that was obviously the one who wasn't there.
I 1000% agree with you. I think mums have this like emotional intelligence that most guys don't have, and I remember looking back now and just thinking, like, what is my dad doing? Like, what, like, but he's just do you know what I mean? Like, he was just a dad acting how a dad would act. And I remember saying to someone, like, it would almost be easier if it was the other way around and mum was still here and dad wasn't. And obviously, sorry dad if you're listening, but it was like the fact that, like you said, a mother is so fixed on her children, and so like, all right, this is what you're going to do, stop acting like an idiot. Obviously it's really sad, she would allow you to grieve, but what she would do is she'd direct me how to grieve. Not that there is a set way, but a more kind of normalized way. And look out for you in a way that I think a lot of people just look out for you by letting you get away with murder almost. Like, you can just act up and the response will be, oh, he's lost his mom, so let's it's alright, let's just pass over that, it's not a big deal. And I think especially when you are so young and having that person in your life for such a short period of time, I mean, that in itself is a bit heartbreaking, knowing that for all these big life events that I'm going to go through, whether that be weddings or my kid's birth, whatever it is, and she's not going to be there.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a few. I mean, just having any motivation to work for A-levels without her was awful. and then getting the results and doing so well.
Yeah.
Realistically, she was just the one person that I'd want to tell. I have all my friends, my sister, but it's just, it makes a difference. Going to uni, just everything, just wanting her there and having to accept she's not, and thinking about bigger milestones like, as you said, weddings, having kids, like, and her just not being there. It's just, you can't like comprehend it. It's one of the things you grow up and you think you don't have to worry about.
Yeah, no, completely. I mean, I don't know if you've seen, but I did. I've written a few like spoken word pieces, and one of the lines that really stick with me, I might have to refresh it because it's my wedding service, she won't be there. I'll stare longingly at her empty chair. And to me, that's just like a complete, like, it's just, you know, the fact that there will always be this empty chair, this emptiness, this being that isn't there. And whatever I go through, it's like, you know, I'd always have mum and dad cheering me on, but now it's almost like I don't have that. And a part of that does really scare me, but then I also have a part of me that the fact that mum isn't here, it's like a driving force, like this motivation for me is like, well, the fact that she's not around and she's not alive almost gives me this like obligation to, you know, not achieve my dreams, but like if there is something I want to do, go for it and not hold back, sort of thing.
What you said about the empty chair, when the first like 2 or 3 birthdays after my mum wasn't here, if we went for dinner, I always left the chair opposite me empty, and I'd always be like, oh, I'm saving it for someone. I think whoever I knew would come last, and then obviously end up sitting somewhere else. There'd be this empty chair in front of me. In my head, it's because like that's where my mum was going to sit, and I think it comes a time when things like that get replaced, or someone now sits there, or my dad like is now with someone, and not like they're filling the chair, but like they're there and my mum isn't. And it's just, obviously you get used to it, but at the beginning it's the most uncomfortable thing. Like I can't like explain how it feels to like have someone else sat in that chair, like you're looking at them, and not like you're angry or that you don't like them, but it's just like it doesn't look right. Like you see a family photo and she's not in there, and it's just, there's always going to be something missing.
I mean, Dad said something the other day. I think he said, you know, do you guys, you know, do you want to have, you know, pictures taken, not just randomly, but, you know, because all the pictures we have are quite old. And then there we were just thinking like, well, we don't want to, you know, make a statement. It is a bit, you know, strange. I don't, you know, the fact that family photos now are always going to be 4 instead of 5, and it's like going to restaurants, and subconsciously I still do it. I'm calling up a restaurant, L'Artista, and I could be like, all right, can we have a table for 5 please? And, you know, like, without really thinking, because that, you know, that is my norm. And then it's like, it's not like it hits me, but it's like, oh, 5 it's not 5 anymore, it's 4. And like that in itself.
I sometimes say like parents, like by accident, like if I'm out with a friend and we're going back and they're like, oh, who's at home? I'm like, oh, my parents. And I'm like, my dad. My dad's at home. The fact that you said that, it kind of triggered something in my head, but how did you find parents' evening and things like that growing up? So I would have had year 7 and 8 maybe parents' evening with my mum. I used to bring my auntie with me to my parents' evening, just because, not that my dad wouldn't have cared, but it was like they're like the same person. My mum would sit there with her notepad, like writing everything down, and I didn't even have to tell my auntie to do that. She said actually exactly the same thing. Maybe because like they're so similar. It's not like they're like the same person, but as I said, they're very similar. So it's kind of like having like a second mum, but I would obviously never call her that.
No, that's nice to way to look at it. I think it is. It's better. Well, when you go for a loss initially, I mean, I'm speaking from experience here. You tend to push away people closest to you. I mean, I don't know if that was the same for you, but I found that I kind of, you know, my aunties, my grandparents, it would really infuriate me, and I don't know why. Well, I mean, kind of, I guess it makes sense, but I kind of would push away these people who are, blood related, close to me, sort of thing.
No, I can understand when you do that. I mean, my family members know sometimes if they talk about my mum too much over dinner, it will start to anger me. But also, I can understand how that would have helped you, but for me, like, I needed to be with them. I needed to be with anything or anyone that reminded me of my mum. Like, I was with the grandparents a lot just because they didn't have to talk about her, but because I know that they're so similar, it was kind of like the closest thing I was going to get. So I kind of just like needed that comfort.
No, I completely see that, and I think now, looking back, I kind of would have benefited from that more. But in my head, when you go through, when you are grieving, your head it's like this scrambled jigsaw puzzle, whatever. It just doesn't make sense. There's no there's not even an expression for what your head is. It's like, I would want to feel fine, but I would have this rush of heat or whatever. I don't even know, but you can sort of gauge from how I'm talking about it how confusing your mind is straight after loss. But the thing I've kind of noticed is it does pass, and it does ease, and things do change and do get easier.
I mean, you can have the opposite as well. I know I've had some days. I remember the first time I had this so clearly, it would have been a couple of weeks or months after, and I had a really fun day. I was just completely busy, got back to my friend's house, and I sat there, and it must have been quite late, and I was like, I haven't thought about my mum the whole day. Yeah. Just because I was so busy, I was enjoying myself, and then I was like, shit, I need to think about her more, I need to be feeling upset. But you can have days where you don't think about it. Like, it's not, obviously you remember they're there, but you shouldn't have to think every day, oh, she's dead. Like, just the whole time, it shouldn't be something that brings you down every single day, because as it happens, it's life. Yeah. People who are close to you aren't going to be there, but you just have to keep going on about your daily life. If I was sat here 24/7 thinking about how she's not here, I'd never have a good day. And I have this calendar, and every day I tear the page off, and it's a different motivational quote for each day. Okay. Look at it every single day, but for some reason, the Saturday that I wrote my blog, I just didn't look at it in the morning for some reason. So after I wrote that blog, I was thinking about the PE thing, just because it was just like the epitome of her. Yeah. Went up to my room and I was like, oh, I haven't looked at the calendar, took it off, and the quote for the day was ready, set, happy. Oh, really? And that's amazing. It's small things like that, because I kind of looked at that and I was like, oh, she's here. Yeah. Just small things like that. That's amazing. I think it's incredible when certain, things, like, I wouldn't say I'm particularly spiritual, but when I notice a feather or something she says, it's like almost the fact that, what's crazy, it comes to me when I need it. Like, if I was, having just, I don't know what I'd be thinking about, I don't know who we're gonna, I don't actually know, my mind's gone blank, but if there was something I needed, a feather would come out of nowhere. And maybe that's just in my mind that it was always there, and I don't know, but it's just almost, an acknowledgement that her presence is still around, whether that's, it's not physically, but a sense of her will always be here, sort of thing. Yeah, no, I definitely feel like you do either notice these things more, or they just kind of happen and you can't really explain it. But you kind of don't think into it too much, because it's just like, as you said, if it's like a comfort blanket, then you just go with it. No, I completely get that. I mean, I think, like you said before, there's a sense of, when you're, further down the line of grief, obviously the stages, I think you're probably better at naming them. I can't recite them off the top of my head. I mean, you did a blog on them, and you can't name them on the spot. What's going on? Don't pick me out. Anger, denial. All right, the last one is acceptance, isn't it? Of course. Okay, yeah, and I don't want to say that, that I think when you think of acceptance, initially I was thinking, all right, I'm gonna, accept that she's dead. But I think what really, when it comes to acceptance, is
accepting like this is your new norm and this is how things are going to be. And yes, it's upsetting, and yes, it's scary, but you can go forward and you can live a happy and healthy and enjoyable life in these unfortunate circumstances.
I think when people think of acceptance, they think there's going to be some like massive like revolutionary moment
Yeah,
where
it's
it
like,
hits them. I know a couple of weeks after I lost my mum, a friend's mum said to me, oh well, I lost a parent, and like 4 years later it really hit me one day, and I just realised, and I thought in my head as like a kid, I was like, oh, one day it's just gonna hit me. And every time I had like a breakdown, I was crying, I was like, have I accepted it now, like is this it? And over time you realise there's not going to be just one moment where you accept it. Maybe I started to accept it long before it happened, because I had to get used to my mum not being at home every day. I had to get used to her just things changing. So I think you start accepting it a while ago, but you'll never fully accept it, because you always think, what if? You'll always have moments where, like I said, a car can pull up outside and for literally a split second I'll think, oh, mum's home. Just things like that. But it is obviously a process, and it does take time, but as you said before, it does get better.
I mean, I think when there are certain times, like it's like comforting to just, even though mum isn't around, it's like a split second of like comfort that, oh, she is gonna be walking through that door. I know I do that sometimes. I mean, looking back on it, I think, well, obviously she's dead, but it's like almost, I want to believe that she's just gonna come downstairs and ask how I am, or make me a really awful tea, because she wasn't great at making tea, but just something, you know what I mean? Just something like that, what I really miss. I mean, what are the things that you particularly miss?
I mean, I think like missing things, one of the hardest things is having, for me, I don't dream about my mum occasionally, but when I do,
you don't
dream about my mum.
Okay, yeah.
Like, sorry. I don't dream about her often, but when I do, I'll always wake up, and in my head I'll have the whole feeling of waking up again and then realising, oh, she's not here. So I think in my dreams it's always stuff that we miss. Like I never dream about the past memories of her. I dream that she comes to visit me at uni, or I dream that we go shopping, just tiny stuff like that, and that's what makes me miss it. But also when I have these dreams, it's always the same, like we'll have a nice time, but she always gets ill, and then in the dream I always relive me losing her. So I think that's kind of me, even though it's obviously I'm not conscious, I'm dreaming, it's me saying that even though I can have these memories and have these good times, it's always gonna end the same way, and I'm always gonna have to accept that it's kind of not real.
So when you say you dream, do you find these are, I mean, what do you just instantaneously wake up? Is this like, you know, I don't want to say a scary dream, but is it, you know, something
no,
that...
it's a really comforting dream.
Okay.
Like, you have dreams that feel like 2 seconds. This feels like a long dream. Like we're always going out and doing nice things, but then it's kind of, as I said before, it's always the letdown. Like you have all these nice dreams, but like, kind of like reality hits. Like this isn't really real. It's always going to end the same way, and then you kind of wake up and you think, oh, that was a nice dream. But it's not real.
No, I completely understand that. I mean, for me, a lot of the things that I miss, I mean, one thing that really springs to mind is just, it's like the family dynamic, and, you know, 4 obviously is different to 5, but I want to say mum was like this sort of glue stick almost, and, you know, she would be like the mediator, and, you know, if there was an argument, it would be like 2 and 2, and she would sort of be like the adjudicator, whatever she was. And it's, you know, obviously it's really stupid, and it doesn't seem a lot. Something like that does make like, in my eyes, it, you know, when I see us at the table and there's, you know, 4 of us and we're arguing, I don't know why, it breaks my heart a little bit, not, you know, having that person who would be like, all right, Joe, shut up, Ben's right, just let's eat, the broccoli's nice, or whatever. Like,
you've never missed an argument so much before.
Yeah, and it sounds nuts. Like, why would you miss an argument? And it's not the argument in itself, it's just the fact that, like, the person she was, and, like, you know, how different a family dynamic is now. And obviously I love my family, and family is a really important thing to me. And I think when mum passed, something I really noticed before she passed. So we went away in the summer, and she passed in October, but we've gone to Israel, and one of the nights she was really, really ill, unwell, like she couldn't go out to eat. And obviously thinking back on it now, that should have been a tell sign, like, oh, this is not looking too good. But I was just thinking, all right, she's not well, she's gonna have a night off. But anyway, we've gone out to eat, the four of us, and when I say the dynamic completely shifted, and it's crazy to think how one person can have such a significant impact on not only your life but everyone's around you. But it really does. And that in itself is just something that I miss.
I think the thing I notice with stuff like that in family is just like the one person who you tell stuff to. Like, I can tell whoever my family, I've passed my exams, or I got this, and they'll be like, oh, well done, blah blah blah. But I could blah blah blah.
Oh,
sorry. But I could literally say one thing to my mum. It can be the smallest thing in the world.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I got this, and she would react as if I just told her I won like a Nobel Prize.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the thing I miss, because obviously you get a well done, you get a congratulations, but if I told my mum like my A-level results, or me getting into...
You did incredible, by the way.
Or me getting into Nottingham, like, I think she'd still be like screaming now. Because that's how much of a big deal she would have made out of it.
Completely. I think, mothers are always going to be our biggest fan. I mean, I remember on every single birthday I'd have, or my brother or my sister, on Facebook, on Instagram, she'd do a whole like collage, and like I'm thinking, oh, it's just a birthday, I've had 19 of them, chill. But like there she was, like, my son's 18 or whatever, like happy birthday, and like obviously that's I loved her for it. And at the time I was thinking, oh, mum, you're so annoying. But what I'll do to have a birthday message, or just one of those things again.
I used to go to like a dance school when I was a kid, and before every show I knew there could be 2,000 people sat in that audience, and I was so embarrassed to go on stage because I know that you'd still be able to hear her like cheering out of all of them.
Brilliant.
And at the time I was thinking, oh, I really don't want to go on stage, like, this is so embarrassing. But now it's just like, it just makes her kind of like just stand out. And as you said, like, I do so much just to have that. Even at the time I was thinking like, get me away from this.
I remember reading your blog, and you mentioned your mum liked theatre, and obviously my mum was a big fan of theatre as well. I know you like Hamilton, and I, by the way, love it, so it's very good.
Good to hear.
And obviously we saw it together, and I just obviously now it's come on Disney Plus, and like I saw it the other day, and I was just thinking like how much you would love to just see there watching what we saw together. And obviously it's upsetting, but at the same time just remembering how much she loved, like whether it was theatre or whether it was, I don't want to say sports, I mean she was sporty, but it wasn't her main thing. But it's just things like that I will really miss.
The one thing for me is obviously when you go to see a musical, and at the last song, when everyone's taking a bow, people slowly start to stand up and clap. And you never want to be the first one to stand up, but every time that happens, it could be, as I said, we're 6 years later. Every musical I see, I just laugh when that happens, because I see the first person to stand up, and I was like, oh, my mum would have stood up 5 minutes before that. She was the first one, and it was so embarrassing. We saw Hairspray musical, and my sister's friend came with, and she had never laughed so much, just because my mum was just so embarrassing, like jumping around, clapping. But you all you can do is look back at it and kind of smile.
I think that's all it comes down to. All those memories, when I was younger, like, oh, mum, you're so annoying, or whatever it was, what I would do to just see that all again, or have a nag in my ear because I hadn't done the dishes or whatever. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't realise. Like, it's not just the memories, and it's not just, all happy times or sad times. It's just the fact that of having a mum, having
them there, even if they're just sat down doing absolutely nothing. I think one of the things that is kind of like hard about that is when when you're at a friend's,
Yeah.
and like you're sat there in your head thinking, oh my god, I'd do anything to have my mum here right
Yeah.
now, and you can see your friend and their mum arguing,
Yeah.
or them being rude to her and getting pissed off for the smallest things, and
Yeah.
I cannot tell you how many times I've wanted to just turn around
Yeah.
and be like stop talking to her like that.
Yeah.
We're just so lucky
Yeah.
to have her, or you don't realise she's had like she's been working the whole day,
Yeah.
and then she hasn't made you dinner and you're having a go at her. Tiny things like that.
Yeah.
But I can't turn around to a friend every time they're bickering with their mum
Yeah.
to be like, just say thank you more, or things like that.
Yeah.
But it's things that they're obviously going to realise when they're older.
Yeah, of
when they
course.
have a loss, they'll think, oh, I should have said thank
Yeah.
you more, I should have said love you more.
Of course, 100%. And I think that is only something you do realise once you go through a loss. You know, it is very hard to, you know, obviously, you know, we've both lost a parent, but it's hard for us to, you know, expect people to treat, you know, their parents the same way that I know now, you know, losing a mum, I would treat a parent, if that makes sense, because, you know, physically they're not there. So I would think, well, I would change if, you know, if they were here. I know how much time each time I'd pressure, that made no sense, but how much every single second I would treasure, sort of thing. And yeah, and I know exactly what you mean. It's difficult, you know, when someone says, oh, I'm on, you know, whatever, she's so annoying, or whatever it is, and obviously in the back of my mind I'm like, hello, like, you know what I mean? But you just can't do that, because
but at the same time, I know friends who don't want to say that to me. I know I have a friend and she will argue with her mum a lot, and then she'll be like, oh, I won't speak to you about it. I'm like, you can, like, you can sit here and like say how much you didn't like her today, or how much she annoyed you, and all of this, because I can still speak to you about it. Like, you shouldn't have to like hide things or not want to talk to me about it just because it might upset me in a way. Like, I still want it to be like a normal friendship that you can talk to me about it.
100%. I think it's even more upsetting when you don't want to talk to me about it, because it's like, well, when you don't discuss it, it's like, well, I don't have a mum, you know, I can't relate to you on that because, you know, she's not here. And obviously that's not their intention, but that's sort of what it feels like. And I know we touched over it before, but it's, you know, when you're with people and they you know, they say, oh, my mum's picking me up, and then you notice all the eyes are on you. And I just want people to know it's okay to talk about it. It's okay to slip up and make these mistakes. It's not like I'm gonna whip out my whatever gun, England pro whatever. But do you know what I mean? I'm not gonna do that. It's just, what does annoy me is trying to step around it and almost act like it's not happening.
Like, it will happen. I mean, I've had it loads. Not even with like new friends. Obviously, you go to uni, people don't know your situation, they say to you, oh, like, what does your mum do? Stuff like that, and having to tell them every time, it's like having to like live it over. But once kind of everyone knows, or when you're with obviously like your old friends who would have been there with you, they still mention it. I know friends who will be like to me, just mention my mum in like a sentence if she was still here, because it's like natural.
That's really nice.
Like, they say to your friends like, no, but like, oh, who did you go out with last night, or for your birthday, like, oh, what did your mum get you? Tiny things like that. I can't really think of it.
Oh, do you mean like slip-ups?
Yeah, like slip-ups, because they're not used to like changing their vocabulary. They'll say to a friend, oh, like, is your mum picking you up again? Tiny things like that. My friends can still do that to me. And everyone else kind of, you can, as you said, you can feel them, and then it has to be the person to be like, oh no, her dad is. Stuff like that. I used to have that a lot when it first happened. But as you said, people do get used to it. And it is awkward at first, but as long as you don't have to turn around every time and be like, oh, well, actually, my mum's passed away, blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh no, just this happened, blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
I mean, on, you know, that line before, you know, regarding someone made a slip up or something like that, I know in the back of my mind, like, I'm going to make a joke about it and make them feel really awkward. Really?
I couldn't do that.
I know I shouldn't, but it's like, when someone says it, I kind of, I just make like, it's like, I think it's just like a coping mechanism almost. And, and then you kind of just see everyone's like eyes and just their hearts just like kind of drop?
I think I kind of know who I can and can't do that to.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the one time I've done it was before we went to uni, and I think me and my friend were quite drunk, and she was talking about how she gets quite a lot of student loan because her parents are divorced.
Okay.
And she goes, oh yeah, because I've only got like one parent, obviously, that she's living with. She goes, I get quite a lot of student loan. And I go, oh yeah, same. And she was so young, she goes, oh, high five. And then everyone kind of looked as if to be like, her parents aren't divorced. But it was funny.
No, I mean, that's another thing. I think when we discuss how, you know, everyone responds to loss differently, and obviously, you know, humor is amazing, and you know, it's you know, putting a smile on your face, release of endorphins and all that scientific jargon. But what I do sometimes is I notice, like you said, some people will interact with you when you make a joke, and then it's even worse. But then even though I don't really care, like I'm enjoying the laugh, but I'd be like, oh, you can't say that. Like, I don't know why you, like, so I would say something like, oh yeah, that's not something, like someone would be like, oh, mum's picking me up. And then I'd say something like, oh yeah, it's something I'm never going to hear again, or whatever. And then they would like bounce off my joke. And then I'd be like, no, you can't say that. You can't. And you just notice, like, they're just like, oh.
Yeah.
I mean, it's wrong, but it's just that.
If it helps you kind of cope with it,
yeah,
if it makes you smile, then who cares?
Like you said, we're allowed to be reckless now and again. So
of course.
I think, yeah, that's what it comes down to. But yeah, before I wrap this up, I want to, well, don't want to close on one thing, but if there's one thing you could tell your mum, you know, if you had a conversation, what would you say?
If I could speak to her now.
If you had, you know, if there's something you could let her know, or like if there's one thing you could ask or let her know how you're doing, what would you sort of?
I'd probably just update her on everything that's happened since she's gone, like my whole school life, A-levels, uni, camp, like everything, and just kind of let her know that she's the only reason why I did well. Like if she was here, she would have pushed me to work hard, and she's still pushing me to work hard even if she isn't here, and even if that's her kind of like still doing it, or just the way she kind of left herself kind of in me. Yeah, it's just like kind of just saying thank you for making me like a mini version of her.
Yeah, I think that's really nice. But yeah, I think thank you so much for coming down to the ends to have this conversation there. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So yeah, thank you. It's all right.